I choose a younger man. I never thought I'd be the woman who falls for someone younger. At 42, with laugh lines etched around my eyes like delicate brushstrokes on a canvas, I'd long accepted that love was a gallery of faded portraits, beautiful once but gathering dust. My marriage to Richard had ended 5 years ago, not with a bang, but a quiet unraveling like thread pulled too tight from a seam. He was steady, predictable, the kind of man who balanced checkbooks while I dreamed in colors. But steady turned to stagnant, and when I finally walked away, I promised myself no more compromises. I'd build my world around the art gallery I'd inherited from my grandmother, a sunlit space in the heart of the city where stories whispered from oil paints and sculptures that seemed to breathe. That promise held until the rainy Tuesday in October when Alex walked through my door. His portfolio clutched under one arm like a shield against the downpour outside. He was drenched, his dark hair plastered to his forehead in rebellious curls, and water pooled at his feet on the polished oak floor. I should have handed him a towel and sent him on his way. Galleries like mine didn't take walk-ins from unknowns. But there was something in the way he shook the rain from his jacket, unapologetic and alive, that made me pause. He couldn't have been more than 28, with a lean build of someone who hiked mountains on weekends and the faint stubble that spoke of forgotten shaves. His eyes, though hazel flecked with gold, held a depth that belied his youth, like he'd already seen storms I hadn't weathered yet. "Hi," he said, his voice warm and rough around the edges, like aged whiskey poured over ice. "I'm Alex. I make things. Sculptures mostly. From scrap metal and forgotten junk. I know it's last minute, but could you take a look?" I glanced at the clock, closing in 20 minutes, but my feet wouldn't move. Instead I nodded, gesturing to the back room where the light was softer, spilling golden from the skylight like honey. As he unrolled his sketches and lifted the cloth from a small piece, a twisted iron heart pierced by a rusted key, raw and aching, I felt it. That pull. Not just admiration for the work, but a recognition. His art screamed of loss and rebirth, of loving fiercely only to watch it bend and reform. "This is extraordinary," I murmured, tracing the edge of the key with my fingertip. The metal was cool, unyielding, yet it hummed with possibility. "Where did you learn to see like this?" He shrugged, but his cheeks flushed, a boyish vulnerability cracking through the artist's facade. "Life mostly. Grew up in a trailer park on the edge of town. Dad left when I was 10, Mom worked doubles at the diner. I started welding junk together to make sense of the mess. Turns out, broken things tell the best stories." We talked until the rain stopped, the gallery emptying around us like a sigh. He didn't push for a show. He just listened as I shared snippets of my own scars, the way Richard's goodbye felt like erasing a mural I'd painted with my soul. By the time I locked up, the air between us crackled, charged like the ozone after a storm. "Coffee tomorrow?" he asked, casual as if he hadn't just appended my carefully curated solitude. I hesitated, my heart thudding a warning. 14 years between us. Worlds apart. But his smile, crooked and earnest, chipped at my resolve. "Sure," I said, the word tasting like forbidden fruit. "Why not?" That coffee turned into dinners under strings of fairy lights at hole-in-the-wall bistros, where we'd dissect Van Gogh's madness over plates of paella that steamed with saffron dreams. Alex was a whirlwind, spontaneous hikes at dawn, where mist clung to pine needles like secrets, and he'd sketch me against the sunrise, my hair wild, my laughter unguarded. He made me feel seen, not as the polished curator with the impeccable bob and pencil skirts, but as Elena, the girl who'd once danced barefoot in summer fields, chasing fireflies until her lungs burned. Our first kiss happened on a bridge over the river, the city lights fracturing into stars on the water below. We'd been arguing playfully about whether love was chaos or symmetry, me championing the latter, him insisting it was the beautiful wreckage in between. He stopped mid-sentence, cupped my face with hands that smelled of clay and rain, and leaned in. His lips were soft, tentative at first, then hungry, as if he'd been starving for this connection. I melted into him, my fingers tangling in his damp shirt, the world narrowing to the salt of his skin and the steady thrum of his pulse against mine. In that moment, age was a forgotten footnote. We were just two souls colliding, sparks flying in the dark. But love, I've learned, is as much shadow as light. The whisper started small, a raised eyebrow from my best friend Lila, over brunch one crisp autumn afternoon. We sat in her sun-drenched kitchen, steam rising from our lattes like unspoken doubts. "He's adorable, Elena," she said, stirring sugar into her cup with unnecessary vigor. "But younger. What happens when he wants kids? Or when you hit 50 and he's still chasing adventures?" Her words landed like pebbles in a still pond, rippling unease through me. I laughed it off, but that night, alone in my loft with its high ceilings and echoing silence, I stared at the ceiling fan's lazy spin and wondered if she was right. Was this real, or just a midlife rebellion, a desperate grasp at youth slipping through my fingers? Alex felt it too, though he masked it with that effortless charm. His family lived 2 hours north, in a sprawling farmhouse that smelled of fresh bread and old wood. When he invited me for Thanksgiving, his mother's famous turkey he promised with all the trimmings, I went, heart pounding like a drum in my chest. The drive was a blur of golden leaves swirling in the wind, but as we pulled up the gravel path, my stomach twisted. His mother, Grace, greeted us with a hug that was warm but appraising, her eyes lingering on the lines around mine. Over dinner, with candlelight flickering on the linen tablecloth, the questions came gentle as a summer breeze but sharp as thorns. "So, Elena," Grace said. Passing the cranberry sauce, her silver hair catching the glow like a halo. "Alex tells us you're quite the force in the art world. But what about family? Plans for the future?" Alex's fork paused mid-air, his jaw tightening. I smiled, reciting my practiced lines about cherishing the now, but inside I was crumbling. His younger sister Mia, a college freshman with braces and boundless energy, chimed in innocently. "Alex always dates artists. But you're like a grown-up artist." "Cool." The table laughed, but it rang hollow, and later as Alex and I washed dishes side by side, the suds foaming like unspoken fears, he whispered, "They're just protective. Ignore it." But I couldn't. The doubts festered, blooming into late-night confessions under the covers, where his body pressed warm against mine, I anchor in the storm. "Do you ever worry I'm too old for this?" I asked one evening, tracing the constellation of freckles across his shoulder. The room was dim, lit only by the street lamp's amber bleed through the curtains, casting shadows that danced like ghosts. He propped himself on an elbow, his gaze steady, piercing. "Elena, age is just a number etched in skin. You think I care about that? I fell for the fire in you, the way you see beauty in the broken just like I do. You're not too old, you're exactly right. For me." His words wrapped around my heart like vines, pulling me closer, and we made love slowly, deliberately, each touch a vow against the encroaching chill. Yet the world conspired. Richard, my ex, caught wind through mutual friends and cornered me at the gallery's holiday opening, a glittering affair of champagne flutes and velvet dresses. He arrived uninvited, his tie too tight, his smile too sharp. "Heard you're slumming it with a boy toy," he said, voice low as we stood by a sculpture of entwined lovers, their marble forms frozen in eternal embrace. "Come on, Elena. You're better than a fling. He'll leave when the novelty wears off." His words slithered in, poison ivy wrapping my resolve. I excused myself, fleeing to the back alley where snow had begun to fall, fat flakes melting on my flushed cheeks. Alex found me there, his coat draped over my shoulders, concern etching his features. "What happened?" he asked, pulling me close. But I pulled away, the hurt too raw. "This isn't fair to you," I whispered, tears freezing on my lashes. "The stares, the judgments. You deserve someone who fits without explanation." He didn't fight then, just held me as the snow blanketed the world in hush, but I saw the crack in his eyes, a glimpse of the boy who'd lost his father young, learned to weld armor from pain. We drove home in silence, the heater blasting warm air that did nothing to thaw the ice between us. Days blurred into a week of polite texts and avoided calls. I threw myself into the gallery, curating a winter exhibit of resilient works, pieces that endured unbowed. But every sculpture mocked me, every painting bled with what I'd walked from. If this story touched your heart, dear listener, and reminded you that love defies timelines and tidy boxes, then I invite you to subscribe to the Evermore Love channel for more tales that weave the threads of romance, resilience, and the heart's quiet triumphs. Hit that button and let's keep journeying together, one beautiful story at a time.